Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video, and today I am super excited to share with you my August bullet journal setup. Today's video is kindly sponsored by Skillshare. I'll talk about them a little more at the end of the video, but for now, let's hop right into the setup. So I am super excited about August's theme. As soon as I started thinking about what I might want to do theme-wise for August, this idea popped into my head, and I am so happy that I went for it because I love this theme so much. So you've already seen the thumbnail, you saw the little sneak peek at the beginning. This month's theme is olives, and this theme was inspired by my collaboration with Archer and Olive. As you may know, I designed a few notebooks with Archer and Olive, including the one that I'm using as my current bullet journal, and the two designs were the sunset and the olive journal. And for the olive journal on the cover, there's just a really dainty gold outline of an olive branch, which I designed and drew, and I really loved how those notebooks turned out, and I wanted to create a bit of an homage to the olive notebook, so that's what I'm doing here. And as I was thinking about how I wanted to do this theme, I had this idea of mixing watercolor art with minimalist line art, specifically gold minimalist line art, and I wasn't sure how this was gonna look as I was sketching out my spreads and planning it in my head, but I just thought I'd go for it, and honestly, it turned out better than I thought, which is great, because you never know. So what I've done is sketched out each spread, and as I go in to paint them, I'm alternating between doing full color watercolor and gold outlines. So you'll see as this progresses what I mean, but here I'm starting with painting every other olive branch in full watercolor. As you can already tell, I'm starting here with the quote page, and the quote I chose was, "But these are days we dream about when the sunlight paints us gold." And I just really loved this quote. I thought it was really beautiful. It really evoked the feeling of summertime and Leo season. August is my birthday month and I am a Leo, so we Leos love our golden summers. And it also just felt very appropriate for this theme, just this idea of olive branches in the sunshine, you know, in sunny Italy or the south of France, and they're turned gold by the sunlight. Just feels so perfect for this theme and this concept. So I used my typewriter stamps for the quote here, and as you can see for the word gold, I decided to go over the stamp with my gold watercolor so that it would be nice and shiny. For the full color olives, I'm only using a couple different colors of paint, and as always, all of the supplies I'm using are linked in the description box down below, so definitely check out the description box if you're looking for specific colors or supplies that I'm using. But I'm using all Winsor & Newton paints. For the leaves, I'm using Winsor & Newton Designer's Gouache in olive green, and for the lighter details on the leaves, I'm just mixing that with a little bit of zinc white. And then for the olives themselves, I'm using a mix of Winsor & Newton's Cotman watercolor in yellow ochre and the aforementioned olive green gouache, and then adding some darker details with the sepia gouache. So I'm only using these 4 colors to paint the olives, and I'm actually really happy with how complex the colors turned out, especially on the olives themselves. As you can see, for the olives, I'm starting with a mix of the yellow ochre and the olive green, and trying to get some variation in light to dark. And then once I'm happy with that base, I'm going in with the sepia on the bottom, top, and edges, and then sort of blending toward the center to give the olives more of a 3-dimensional look, as well as a bit more complexity in color. As we get started here, I have a question for all of you. This is very serious. Do you or do you not like olives? I feel like this is a contentious subject, but I'm really curious where all of you fall. Are you a fan? Are you not? Because for most of my life, I was not a fan of olives. I would not touch them with a 10-foot pole. And then I met my husband, and he introduced me to the complex, delicious, ever-varied world of olives, and I can't turn back. I love them now. So I would love to know, let me know down below, do you like olives? Yes or no? If you want to share the reasons, I would love to hear it. I have a lot more olives to paint in this setup, so hopefully the more you see me do it, the more you can sort of see how I'm approaching it. But if you have any questions, let me know in the comments down below, of course, as always, and I'll do my best to answer and help you out. So now that I'm finished with my full color olive branches, I'm going in to fill in those minimalist gold branches. So as you can see, I'm starting with my gold acrylograph from Archer and Olive, just because I always find it easier to start with a pen than a brush, especially for finer details or monoline art. And once I'm happy with all of the branches in the gold acrylograph, I'm going over that with my gold watercolor just for the extra shine, because even though I love the gold acrylograph, it's beautiful on its own, there's nothing quite like this gold watercolor. It just shines like nobody's business. Moving on over to the cover page, I wanted to do a big A with some olive branches popping off of it, and then write August down beneath. Just a very minimalist, simple cover page this month. So I'm starting by painting the A itself using a pretty washed out olive green, so olive green with quite a bit of water on the brush to dilute that color. And then I'm going in with less water on my brush so I get a darker, more saturated color, and using that same olive green to paint in the leaves. Once that first layer was dry, I went in with my gold watercolor and added a bit of a drip, I guess, effect to the bottom of the A. I just wanted the bottom portion of the A to sort of slowly move into gold, as if it was dipped in gold, I guess. I'm also painting in the olives, again using that same technique, starting with my yellow ochre and olive green mix, and then using my sepia to add some darkness around the edges and again, complexity of color. Once all of the paint is dry, I'm using my Sakura Micron in 04 to outline the A. I wasn't actually planning on doing this, but I just felt like this was missing something. It needed a little bit more separation from the page, and I'm really happy with how it looks with that outline, so I'm glad I did it. Then to finish it off, I'm going in and adding a couple olive branches in gold just to tie everything together. Flipping over to my next spread, which is going to be my monthly calendar on the left side and a habit tracker on the right. I've recently gotten back into using habit trackers, which is kind of weird. It's been a long time since I used them regularly, but I just feel like my life has changed a lot recently, and I'm trying to develop some healthier habits and kind of develop a routine for myself. So I've been enjoying using the tracker in my current setup for July and wanted to continue that forward into August. So I'm starting with the full color olive branches again, using the same techniques I used on the first spread. I did have a little bit too much water on my brush as I was painting the leaves, and they turned out a lot lighter than I wanted. So you'll see once that first layer dries, I do go back in and darken up those leaves. I'm going for my very minimalist monthly calendar with only horizontal lines again. I think this is my favorite way to do a monthly calendar just because it looks so clean and simple, but is still really easy to use. So now working on the habit trackers themselves, I decided to do the type of tracker where you have a bunch of tiny little circles, a circle for each day. And I really like how these look, and I'm happy that I did them because I think they're fun. But my goodness, is it a lot of work to draw all these tiny circles and to really concentrate and try to get them as even as possible. I really need to get a stencil that just has a full month perfectly spaced so that I don't have to stress myself out trying to keep every circle in line with with the next. For August, I'm just tracking 4 habits, and those are spin. So we actually bought an exercise bike just to be able to get some exercise at home. And a close friend of mine is actually a spin instructor, so I got some digital classes from her, and I'm excited to start doing spin more regularly. I'm also tracking yoga because I love yoga and I love stretching my body, moving my body in a more mindful way. I also have bed by 11 because I'm trying to become a morning person now. I know, who is she? But I'm trying, okay? And the only way it's gonna work is if I start going to bed before 2 a.m. So we're trying. And then the last thing I'm tracking is days off because, again, my biggest struggle is ever taking a day off work because of the nature of my job, because I work from home, because I am the one and only employee of my business. I tend to pick up work pretty much 24/7, and I haven't historically had a lot of boundaries when it comes to separating work and personal life, and I am really trying to force myself to take at least 1 full day off work each week, because that seems like the bare minimum, and it's sad that I haven't been able to achieve that for the past couple years, but I'm trying, so tracking that as well. Once I finished my calendar and my habit tracker, I went in and cut all of my pages for my weeklies because I am using my tabs yet again. So for everyone who asks to cut the tabs, I'm cutting along the 3rd dot away from the edge. So there's a little bit of space from the edge of the page to the 1st dot, then there's a 2nd dot. On that 3rd dot in, that's where I'm cutting to have the edge of all the pages within this section, so all my weekly pages. And then for the tabs themselves, those are 2 dots wide, which leaves them with just a little bit of space before the edge of the notebook, which is the look that I prefer. So hopefully that helps for everyone who asks me about the dimensions. This is the size of tab that I think looks most natural in my size journal, but if you're in a different size of journal, you might find that a different size tab looks better. I decided to paint all my tabs gold this time around just because I love all gold tabs. It's so satisfying to me. And the last time I did it was March in my Greek goddess theme, so I decided to do it again. And I'm happy I did because they're just so shiny, you know? I'm a simple person, okay? If something's shiny, I'll be happy. I'm also setting up my first weekly, so you can see here I'm using my Faux Dutch Door rolling weekly, as I always do because it's my favorite. I'll link the video where I explain how the rolling weekly works and why I like to use it and how to set it up in case you want to learn more. And I'm just continuing this process all the way through all the weeklies, folding the center pages of each weekly and painting all the tabs. And now all that's left is getting those final 2 pages. So for my last 2 pages, I wanted another quote page on the left, and then just a big full page pattern artwork on the right. And again, starting with that dark green base, which is just the olive green on its own with very little water. Then of course, I'm going in and painting the olives themselves, again using that same technique, my mixed yellow and green to start, and then going in with a sepia to add those darker, warmer edges. The technique I'm using to add the darker color is using a very fine brush to add the pigment where I want it to be strongest. And then I'm rinsing that brush and getting it quite wet to blend it out towards the center. So starting with concentrated color along the edges, a pretty dry brush, and then wetting the brush and blending that color towards the center. I'm also generally, as I fill in the olives, trying to leave a little semicircle, sort of crescent moon shaped blank area to be a highlight on the olive, sort of where the sun is hitting them. On some of the olives, I kind of got carried away and filled in that space. So if I did end up filling in my little highlight, I just go in after with my zinc white and add it back in. And now for the last step here, which is using my olive green mixed with white just to get a nice pale green to add in some of those details on the leaves. I'm keeping it pretty simple for the leaf details. For the most part, I'm just adding a single line down the center to show the main vein, but on some of them, I'm adding a little bit more to make it look like the leaf is sort of turning over and you can see the back side of the leaf. But again, I'm keeping them pretty simple. I don't want to get too overly detailed or realistic here. Once all of those were dry, I went in with my gold acrylograph to draw in all of my monoline gold olive branches. And while the acrylograph was drying, I went in to add my quote, and for my final quote here, I'm using "wild and beautiful and drenched in sun," which again sort of ties in with that first quote and just feels very appropriate for this theme and appropriate for the summertime vibes, you know? Going in with my gold watercolor and my super fine brush to do that final layer just for the most shininess possible. I just can't get over this gold watercolor. Every time I use it, I am blown away again by how beautiful it is. And that brings us to the end of the setup. So before I show you the final flip through all of the spreads we created today, I want to take a second to talk to you about today's video's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare, as you probably know, is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creators. You can explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity. There are so many different types of classes available on Skillshare that I promise you will be able to find one that you're interested in. Whether it's animation, creative writing, fine art, or even lifestyle and productivity, Skillshare has you covered. I firmly believe that every human was born to create in some form or fashion. There are endless possibilities and they are as vast as your imagination. The class I'm currently taking is the Ultimate Self-Care Playbook, Discover and Nurture Your Centered Self by the one, the only, Jonathan Van Ness. I love Jonathan. He is such a bubbly ray of sunshine. He is so unabashedly himself, and I so admire the way that he lives his life in such a way to maximize his joy. He is not afraid to do the things that make him happy, no matter what anyone else thinks about them, and I just think that is such a beautiful quality that I hope to emulate in my own life. So I am loving this class so far. I think Jonathan has so much wisdom to share in how he prioritizes that self-care, that centering, and the joy in his life. Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads, and they're always launching new premium classes, so every time you log in, you're going to find new, inspiring ways to connect to your creativity. Because Skillshare is sponsoring this video, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring your creativity today. Thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and for always being a champion for creative expression. I appreciate you. And now, without further ado, let's check out the final flip through of my August setup. I love how this olive theme turned out, and I really love the combination of the more realistic full color watercolor olive branches and the minimalist outlines. There's just something so satisfying to me about blending those two art styles together. They are two of my favorite art styles. So I'm really happy with this one. It makes me feel super summery and happy, which I love. It is my birthday month, so I always try really hard to make my August themes ones that I'm just going to feel so much joy using through my birthday month, and I think we achieved that this time. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree, if you like how this theme turned out, and what theme you're doing for August, because I always love to hear your theme ideas. Sometimes they give me an idea for a new theme that I can try. Before I go, I want to take a second to thank my patrons for their support. Extra special thanks to our newest patrons: Brandy, Cecilia, Emily, Jade, Karen, Rebecca, Sarah, Ari, Emily, Zoe, Brooke, Josh, Michelle, and Giselle. Welcome all of you to the squad. We are so excited to have you. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. And with that, I'm gonna get going. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends.